I might break this up into 2 videos, so if I do that, then just take this and put it at the beginning and be like, okay, I made the 2 videos because this was way too long. Okay, part 2. I kind of want to talk about normal person nervous, which was kind of a terrible term. There's probably something better. I think people do kind of need to realize that I don't know, I always get kind of like, I don't know, frustrated or just like cringe a little bit when you hear it. Like, I've heard it a billion times. Somebody will get on stage and they're giving like a presentation and they'll say something like, I was just like you, like I didn't like be public speaking, or I didn't like, I was watching this video once and the guy was like, I was the quiet kid in the back. And that person, I think, needs to realize that it's hard to say it like this, but like, they didn't have social anxiety, because if they did, they'd understand that they wouldn't be saying what they're saying like that. There's normal person nervous, and I know the difference because now I actually experience normal person nervous. Like, I remember the first time I experienced it was when I went to on my job interviews, and like 5 years ago, if I went on a job interview, I would rather be dead, and I would be dreading it for months or weeks or whatever, and I would constantly be thinking about it. I remember in college we had to do a mock job interview that was like 5 minutes long, and I was like, you have no idea the dread. Like, you're going to be executed when you're going in for the mock interview. That's a different level. That's social anxiety nervous. And what I felt when I was starting to do the job interviews after I did therapy and I was taking medicine was normal person nervous, which is like, ooh, I'm a little bit nervous, but like, I'll prepare, and like, you just don't. There's a huge difference. When I was a kid, I remember in school when we'd have to give presentations, there would be other kids there saying stuff like, oh, like, I'm going to raise my hand first and volunteer, because if I go first, then I'll get it over with. So that person is experiencing normal person nervous, because if they were experiencing what I was experiencing, they wouldn't even physically be able to raise their hand. They would, because their brain would be telling them, like, whatever you do, don't do it, because maybe you won't have to do it today, and maybe you'll do it tomorrow, and then maybe tomorrow the school will explode or something, and then you won't have to do it. Like, just delay it. You just don't. You can't do it. You can't do it. And then eventually, when you'd have to do it, you just like kind of disassociate and be like, okay, like, I can't sit in the chair forever. She called my name. I have to go up and read the paper, and like, that's how it would happen, and you'd get a C on the presentation because you'd suck at it. So yeah, in this section, I kind of want to also talk about therapy, because that's like super important, and maybe we'll just cut out the improv part. So the cool thing that I wanted to talk about with therapy is that, like, I've always felt, maybe this isn't totally true, but the only social anxiety is like one of the only things where you get better by just going to therapy. Like, therapy is the therapy. It is the exposure therapy. Like, if you go to therapy because you're afraid of snakes, you probably won't get better by just talking about snakes. You have to, like, okay, well, I mean, it will help a little bit, but if you want to be around snakes, you got to start being around snakes. But if you have social anxiety, you kind of are, it's not 100% true, but like, you kind of just get better by just going, because you're doing the thing. So that's the cool thing, but that's obviously also what makes it hard to do, and why I didn't do it for 10 years. Or longer than 10 years. I don't know. I mean, I guess you don't really have to go to therapy. Like, if you could find somebody just to talk to who's like a nice person, I don't know. I didn't really have anybody to talk to. See, I didn't. So I guess in relation to this question, I could say, like, this is more for people who have social anxiety who haven't done therapy. Be prepared for it to not feel like it's doing anything, or like it's bad, or I feel like you have to do it a lot. The first time I went, I didn't really say anything, and I remember I probably cried a lot, like the first month I went. But now I've been doing it every week for 2 years, and I don't, like, now when I do it, I don't even really, like, I remember when I first started doing, like, preparing notes and being like, oh, I have to think of something to say. You put a lot of weight, I guess, on therapy, and I guess I did too. Like, it's like, this is the thing that's gonna cure you, and this is a theme for me that I've noticed, is like, with social anxiety, you think that the hardest part is just doing the thing. Like, oh, I went to therapy now. That's it. Not good. You did it. You did the hard part, right? Just going. Well, no, not really. You're not going to get... You have to keep going, and you have to keep working at it to get actually what you want. It kind of sucks, because I guess, so you have social anxiety, and you're like scared to play basketball, let's say. You've never played basketball before, and you have social anxiety. If you finally work up to going, you're not going to automatically be good at basketball. You have to actually keep practicing. But it seems obvious, but like, every time I do something, I get frustrated that, like, right when I do it, I feel like I did the hard part already, and I'm not already amazing at it. So, like, happened with therapy, it happened with the job stuff, it happened with dating. The hard part always seems like the first thing, and then you start doing it for a couple months, you do it for a year, and you get you don't feel like you should be perfect now because you did the hard part, but you have to keep working at it. I was getting frustrated a lot with the therapist because I felt like she was, I don't know, there might be a term for this, but like I couldn't think of anything. It just felt like she was reverse gaslighting me, where, so this is an example of going to therapy and feeling like it's not really working and it's not helping. She would, like, I would go to her and be like, okay, I don't talk to anybody, and I'm bad at conversations, and like, I kind of want to get better. And the therapist would be like, no, you're perfect. You're talking here. You're fine. Like, what are you talking about? You crazy? And I would feel crazy. Like, I'm not crazy. I know when I talk to people it's bad, and I'm not able to connect with people. And she's like, no, you're fine. Like, that was always the frustrating thing. Sometimes therapists, it's not the therapist I have now. She's a little bit better, and the other therapists were good too. But there's a thing where, like, I want to actually get better, but if the therapist can get me to think that I'm better, then they could just solve all my problems immediately, because I would just think, okay, everything's fine. So I always felt like they were trying to take the easy way out of just being like, just trying to convince me that everything's fine, and if they could, then everything would be fine and I'd be better. But there's always a major part of me that actually wants to be better at connecting with people and talking to people, and like, that takes work, and I don't really know how to do that. So then I would be frustrated when I'm just like, I want the therapist to tell me how to do that, and she's not doing it. She's just trying to convince me that I'm already fine. So it's like reverse gaslighting, which I thought was funny. Okay, that's good. And then we're on the last question. What do you think is next for you? So yeah, I spent a lot of time last year, in the past couple years, focusing on job stuff, and that was a huge thing. And then I got the job that I like, and now it's relationship stuff, because I'd never in my entire life done any relationship stuff. Oh, and I have to tell my my astronaut analogy, because I told her I was gonna say that. So yeah, I'm 29 and I've never done anything relationship, nothing at all, ever. And the reason why, so I always thought that it was interesting that that never really bothered me, like that specifically never bothered me, and recently it has. Like I'm trying to be in a relationship and it's not really, it's hard. And that's frustrating. An analogy I used to use like a long time ago, which I probably sounded super depressing then, and it's a little bit more hopeful now, which was imagine, and maybe I should like phrase it to her like you. So like imagine I'm an astronaut and I come to you and I say, I just came back from the moon. It was the most amazing thing ever in the whole world. And like, you're on the moon and you're jumping around and like you're playing golf, and like I got a hole in one in a crater and we were in a dune buggy and we were and it was the coolest thing ever, and like you could see the earth and you could see the planets, and like it's a totally amazing experience. Like you have to do it. It's the coolest thing ever. How would you respond to that? I guess maybe I'll ask her. I don't know. Like, would you be sad by that? Like, or would you be, what would you, I guess I wonder what her response would be, or anybody's response. My response, and why this is an analogy for me, is like, okay, like walking on the moon, I'm sure it's awesome. I wish I could, but I can't. I can't be an astronaut. I get sick on roller coasters. When you do the spinny thing, I throw up. I can't do it. I'm not ever gonna walk on the moon. I guess I'm a little bit sad about that, but like I gotta worry about my bills and stuff. I can't worry about walking on the moon. I'm sure it's cool, but like I don't care really. It's not something it's so distant from me that I don't think about it. Like the second you walk away as the astronaut, I'm not really gonna worry about it. Right now in this moment, I'm like, oh yeah, it's kind of cool. I wish I could walk on the moon. You leave, I'm thinking about, did he like me? Did the astronaut think I was cool? So the analogy with relationships is like, I had so many other things to worry about before that I never really cared about relationships. But now, and I have to get the name right, it's not Stephen Collins, it's Michael Collins. It's kind of funny that I always, I mean, everybody does Lance Armstrong and Neil Armstrong. They mix them up. But I also mix up Stephen Collins and Michael Collins. It's Michael Collins, who was the third astronaut on Apollo 11. And Buzz Aldrin, I don't mix him up because he's, like, pretty unique. But so the reason why it hurts now more is because I'm closer to the moon. I'm Michael Collins, though. I'm not on the moon. I'm not in a relationship. I still don't know what it's like. But I could see it. I've been like on the apps, and I've been on a date or two, and like I see what I'm missing, and I'm so close, but and I see Buzz and Neil, and they're playing golf, and I'm like, I want to be on the moon, and I want to play golf, and nope, you have to stay in the ship, and it's not your time yet. I don't think he ever walked on the moon, which is pretty interesting. Oh yeah, that's it. I don't know what else. So then, what do you think is next for you? Yeah, it's just the relationship stuff. So I have to. It's hard. I don't know. Maybe do you have any advice? Like, how do I meet people? I don't know what to do. It's hard because I feel like what I was saying before. Like you always feel like, okay, you just put yourself out there, and then that's the hard part. And then once you do it, you'll find somebody. I remember that, like, yeah, I don't know, you put yourself out there, and then you're like, that John Travolta thing, where he's like, Where's everybody? I thought everybody was supposed to be here. But it's harder, like, to actually, like, I've only met like 5 people out of what, like 2 billion people that I could possibly meet. At this rate, I'm never gonna meet everybody. So how am I supposed to meet the right person for me? 5 people every year. That's not enough. I'm ready for my close up. So I talked for 40 minutes about all the questions. I don't know if there's anything else I want to talk about. I don't know. Maybe it's kind of weird. I think it's good. It's good. I think it would be embarrassing more if, like, I had practiced jokes and then I would, like, joke on the podcast and then you'd come back here and be like, oh, we practiced that. That's embarrassing. But I really just am practicing the answers, and I'm not going to make any jokes. Because I feel like the first time I did this, the video that's called Podcast Away. That's a fun little pun. Whatever. I was, like, practicing jokes. But yeah, those are the questions and the answers, and I'll let you know if anybody cares. Listen to the podcast. If you're watching this, the podcast is a million times better. So, like, listen to the podcast. It's called Social Anxiety Bestie, and I feel like I found it one day. I was on Overcast. I have the Overcast. Oops, someone just texted me. That's weird. My mom. I was on the Overcast, and I was just like, okay, I'm just going to type in social anxiety and see what comes up. So I typed in social anxiety, and that came up. Yeah, it's pretty high. It's, so if you type in social anxiety, it's right there. It's only like 6 down. And I feel like maybe what drew me to it was that it was just one person. Like, all these other ones are like groups of people. So I was like, what are you talking about? You got friends? But then this person's like, oh, it's just one person talking. That's the thing I really like about the way she does her podcast. Is, maybe I can mention this to her. I don't know. Like, this is the thing that I like, is I have social anxiety and here's me dealing with it. It's not like, oh, here's 10 ways to cure social anxiety, and like, I don't know. I mean, that can be okay, but when I think about it like self-help, it's always like, oh, here, I used to have social anxiety and here's what I did, and you could be as awesome as me. And I'm like, you suck. I don't want to be like you. I'm going to be as weird as you. Like, I don't want to be like you. So I don't know. But yeah, listen to the podcast. It's good. I like it a lot. I've been listening to it for a while. And if I have a video on my channel called Social Anxiety Acquaintancy. So if you search that, it's a Wind Waker video. It's like almost 2 years ago or something. That was the first time I listened to it. And I remember being kind of like impressed, I think, by the idea of the podcast. Is like, bestie. Scary. Like, you don't know these internet people. You want to be their best friend? What if they're weird? I don't know. But she was right. I mean, everybody who's in her Patreon is super awesome. I haven't met one person who's like, I don't know, like if I created what she created and so we do a Zoom call every week with people in the Patreon, I'd be worried there'd be like a weirdo on there who'd be like being weird and just being like creepy, or like, hey, or just like talking too much or something. I don't know. and then I'd be like responsible for them or something. So I don't know if I could ever do that, but she does a good job. So listen, would you listen, Dalton? Why haven't you listened to it yet? And if you do the Zoom thing, you'll see me. I just did it today. We did it at 12 o'clock, and it was good. I talked about going to the airport, and everybody was super nice about it. Because that is an embarrassing thing to bring up. Like, oh, you're proud of yourself because you went to the airport? But they were all like, yeah, going to the airport's hard. It sucks. And I was like, yeah. So yeah, I think I'm going to split this into 2 videos. So I'll say, see you tomorrow, and I'll put this at the end of the first video and at the end of the second video. And I'm looking forward to the podcast. I don't know. Hopefully I do okay. And see you tomorrow.